welcome to Discovering the Law. My name is Attorney Lucy Rivera, and this program can be viewed at www.discoveringthelaw.com. We are here with a very special guest, Georgia Katsoulomitis. She is the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Law Reform Institute. Georgia, it's a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here, Lucy, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
A blessed and prosperous and peaceful and justice-filled 2013.
Thank you, and likewise. We're proud to have you, the Executive Director of the Mass Law Reform Institute. How long have you been the director of the...
Mass Law Reform Institute is turning 45 this year, so it's a very momentous year for us. And I am a fairly new executive director. I have been on the job as of today. I believe it's been 21 months. So I am just under 2 years. I succeeded a long-standing and very respected executive director who led the organization for 41 years, Alan Rogers. And it's the best job in legal services. So I'm both honored and delighted to be leading this wonderful organization.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And welcome. Tell us, what is the Massachusetts Law Reform Institute?
The Massachusetts Law Reform Institute is a statewide nonprofit legal services organization that is part public interest law firm and part policy center. Our mission is focused on advancing racial, economic, and social justice for low-income and underserved individuals, families, and communities. We do that by using what we refer to as multi-forum advocacy, which means we employ class action litigation, policy reforms, advocacy in administrative agencies, educating policymakers and the general public about policies, laws, or regulations that may be harmful to people that are living in poverty. And at the same time, we are always looking for innovative strategies and initiatives that can help people move out of poverty and really address the root causes of what keeps people in poverty. And one of our great strengths is that we do this through collaborative activities. We work with well over 200 local, state, and national organizations who are our advocacy partners. And by working with a lot of organizations on the field who work one-on-one with families struggling with poverty or with the working poor, we are able to identify issues that affect these families from the ground up, and we're able to identify emerging issues. So we're able to respond very nimbly and very effectively.
Very interesting. Tell me about the issues that the Massachusetts Law Reform Institute cover.
Mass Law Reform covers a wide range of issues. We basically focus on all areas that may, well, I should say most areas that may affect people living in poverty. So we work on, for example, housing, health care, family homelessness, child welfare, family law and domestic violence, income supports, employment law, immigration, hunger and food insecurity, and of course racial justice. And we're always thinking about issues like access to justice in terms of how poor people can access the court system and trying to remove barriers to their accessing justice through the court system. In addition, we maintain 2 websites, one of which is called Mass Legal Help, which is www.masslegalhelp.org. That is an organization that is for the general public and for people needing basic legal assistance in various poverty law areas. It's written in a very easy to understand form. It's a great website and a great resource that we encourage people in the community, particularly social workers or others who work with low income and underserved populations who need legal advice, to turn to that website because it does give some very, very good information. The other website that we maintain is for legal advocates and it's called masslegalservices.org. And that is specifically for the legal services community and for other advocates who work with our client populations who may need a little more sophisticated advice about certain legal cases or policy issues. So those two are just, they're tremendous resources of the community.
Very interesting. So now you're talking about poverty and a lot about it. How do you define poverty?
Well, there are two definitions of poverty. There's the actual definition of who is poor, and according to the federal poverty guidelines. And I brought the guidelines with me because I wanted to be very accurate in terms of what they are. In 2012, in order to be qualified or to consider living in poverty in America, a family of four must earn an annual salary of $23,050 per year or below. A single person earns $11,170 a year or below. That is who is considered poor. So that is the economic definition of poverty. But I think poverty has a lot more to do than economic deprivation. I mean, obviously the economic deprivation is the most dire because people struggling and living in poverty are deprived of basic human needs, of things that we take for granted, you know, housing, clothing, heating in the winter, food, shelter. I mean, every single day for a family living in poverty is a series of tough choices. Do you pay your heating bill or do you buy food? Do you buy food or do you buy medicine? Do you buy new clothing for your child or do you pay a utility bill? So poverty is although it's based on economic deprivation, that's the technical, the numbers are the technical definition of poverty. I really think poverty is a state that it robs people of opportunity. It robs people of basic human needs. And most tragically, it robs people of hope. And that's why I believe that what we, not only Mass Law Reform, but our partner organizations and people who care about these issues and who really fight for these issues are doing very critical work, because it's very easy for a family and for an individual to fall into a state of poverty. It is now very difficult to escape it.
And who are your partners in this services for the poor?
We have such a wide range of partners. Our immediate partners, the ones that we work with and who we provide technical support to, because the one thing I didn't mention about Mass Law Reform is that because our advocates have such a high level of expertise, and they are considered, and I love to brag about my staff, but it's actually well-deserved, they are actually considered national experts in their respective areas of expertise. So along with engaging in litigation and doing our advocacy ourselves, we also provide technical support and expertise to legal service programs who are in the field, who are working one-on-one with clients who may have a technical issue about a point of law that we may be able to assist them with. And we also co-counsel with them, and we partner with them in different initiatives. And we also partner with a wide range of organizations. We partner with groups that work with homeless organizations. We partner with a very large number of domestic violence service providers and advocates. We partner with the medical community in terms of our healthcare work. So really, we partner with a lot of organizations that focus on anti-hunger work or on immigration reform or political asylum. So our network is just vast, and it's very interrelated. And that's what really makes our advocacy very effective and very powerful, because we both have the capacity to see the big picture of what's going on across the spectrum of poverty, and we're also, through our community groups and partners that work on the ground, we're able to see what's happening at the micro level. So that makes our advocacy particularly effective.
Very interesting. And I wanted to ask you, do you represent clients?
We do not represent clients unless by doing so we advance a bigger reform or a larger reform. We typically do represent client groups, but not individual clients. That's what our partners in the field do. I mean, for example, a Greater Boston Legal Services or a Neighborhood Legal Services or Community Legal Aid, South Coastal Legal Services, Metro West Legal Services. These are the organizations that do the one-on-one representation where people come to them with a very, very specific problem and that they seek guidance with. We focus much more on the systemic reform and the impact advocacy.
So what are the issues that the Massachusetts Law Reform Institute is working on right now?
We're working on it's so hard to talk about the issues we're working on in any time-limited situation. We're working on literally dozens of initiatives. So I'm only going to go through a tiny number of things that we're working on because we're working on so many things. One of our big issues right now is in the area of family homelessness. We have been engaged in some very aggressive advocacy to preserve the emergency shelter safety net for homeless families with children. Back in 2012, in November of 2012, the state promulgated some new regulations that severely restrict access to emergency shelter. Now, the unintended consequence of these regulations was that hundreds, if not thousands, of families that were previously eligible for shelter under the old regulations are no longer eligible. And we find ourselves in a situation where we have been seeing families sleeping in cars or going to emergency rooms just for the night, to spend the night, to seek some protection for their children. So we have been working on this, and we will continue to aggressively work on this, both with the administration and with the legislature, to see if we can ameliorate and modify some of the more restrictive regulations that have been promulgated in that area. Another really innovative initiative that we're working on that is going to create some job opportunities for people living in low-income communities is the enforcement of Section 3 of the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968. Now, what Section 3 requires is that public housing authorities and other entities that receive HUD funding are required to provide job training and potential job opportunities for qualified low-income residents and communities. Now, historically, Section 3 has not been enforced, and we're going to change that because we believe that here is a prime opportunity where we can help people find well-paying jobs where they can eventually move themselves out of poverty. And I'll mention one final one. MLRI has been very instrumental in uncovering some really dysfunctional practices in our Department of Children and Department of Children and Families, which is the state's child welfare agency. We discovered that hearings that parents are entitled to when some very critical issues concerning their children are involved are not taking place in a timely manner. Sometimes parents wait for months, sometimes years to have a hearing, and then months and months go by before they even get a decision. So we've been on the forefront of really implementing some very significant reforms because we really feel that families in crisis need as much assistance as they can to maintain the family unit and to maintain some stability. So those are just 3 of dozens of projects that we're working on.
Tell us about the project that you have about fighting hunger and job creation.
Well, the job creation is the Section 3 project that I just described that we're working in collaboration with the Boston Resident Training Institute and with local housing authorities. That was the Section 3 project I described. Our work in the area of anti-hunger and food insecurity is nationally recognized. We have been working for years on this issue, and because of our work, the participation in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the SNAP program, formerly called food stamps, in Massachusetts has dramatically increased, which is a good thing, because that is what these programs have been designed to do. They've been designed to help people stabilize themselves during economic hardship and hard times. And certainly over the last several years, many families have fallen into hard times. So there are those who say that, well, you know, the food stamp program has gone through the roof. There's so many people enrolled. That's exactly what this program is designed to do. People are enrolled in this program because they've fallen on hard times. But mass law reform has really been at the forefront of both making modifications to the state program that enables, for example, children to be able to be eligible for school meals because of SNAP participation, so they're trying to streamline that program. And I know that next year we're going to be working very aggressively with some national and state partners to really increase efforts to battle childhood hunger. So we're very excited about that because we feel that no child in this country should be hungry, and it doesn't reflect the values of this country or of this Commonwealth that 22.5% of the children in this country are living in poverty. And we're trying to change that, and we're doing it one step at a time.
And in that vein, what's your opinion about poverty being addressed nationally?
My opinion, if I may be blunt, is that unfortunately poverty is not being addressed on the national level. I mean, we recently, last year we went through many, many months of a political campaign, and the word poverty was rarely mentioned. And when you consider that we find ourselves right now in a situation where poverty in America is at its highest level, in the 50 years that poverty has been measured, I think the number is 46.2 million Americans are now living at or below the poverty line, many of them living in extreme poverty. I do find it very disheartening that this is not higher on the national agenda. There is a lot of talk about stabilizing and helping the middle class, which is extremely important because a vibrant middle class is critical for the future of this country. But I think pitting the poor against the middle class is a very false division, because I think anything that benefits the middle class benefits the poor and vice versa. So I don't feel that it is being addressed on the national level. Now, if you ask me why, I have several theories, and I'll go through them. One is that, very simply, poor people and poor children and poor families often don't vote. They feel disenfranchised. They do not have the financial means to contribute to political campaigns.
Can you turn that on?
I think
turn that on.
The other problem that we're now seeing
turn that on.
is that, unfortunately, we're seeing what we saw back in the 1980s, which is the demonization of the poor and the resurrection of the myth of the welfare queen. There is a myth that people that are poor or people that receive government assistance don't work, they're lazy, they're scamming the system. The reality, the truth, is that many people that do receive government benefits actually work. In fact, they work more than one job. But when you consider that the minimum wage in Massachusetts is, what is it, $8 an hour? Think about how you can survive on an $8 an hour job, even 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs. So it's not that poor people don't work, it's that poor people are working, they're working hard, they're playing by the rules, but they're not being given a break, and they're not being given an opportunity to better their lives. So I think that's another part of the problem. There's a very big misconception about who the poor are.
Okay. And Georgia, on that, I wanted to ask you about the prior initiatives that Massachusetts Law Reform Institute has championed.
Oh my goodness. We have had 45 years. In fact, I brought with me, I found this actually the other day, this was created during the 30th anniversary of Mass Law Reform, and this was considered a summary of some of the things that were done during the first 30 years. So I think this year I'm going to need an entire mural. But just some of the things that we've done that people may not be aware of. The Massachusetts Law Reform Institute drafted and implemented the 40B, what is called Chapter 40B, which has been responsible for the creation of 46,000 units of affordable housing in Massachusetts.
And what that is Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section B.
Correct.
And Georgia is going to describe what that is.
It's highly complicated, and I won't get into the weeds of what this is, but it basically encourages developers in suburban areas to use zoning laws to create affordable, it provides incentives to create affordable housing units. So that's really the 2-second definition, but it's a very complicated law, but a very successful one, because it's created 46,000 units of affordable housing, not only for low-income and elderly families, but also for working-class families. So that's been a very major achievement and a very successful endeavor. Because of work that Mass Law Reform championed, we created laws that require hospitals and courts to provide interpreters to patients and to litigants who are limited English proficiency. That is because of Mass Law Reform's work, something that people are not aware of. Let me get my little cheat sheet out, because we have so many that we've been. We have filed and won a class action suit back in the 1990s that required the state to provide child care to parents who receive public assistance who want to take advantage of education and job training programs, and thus better able to prepare them for entry into the workforce. We, along with a coalition of advocacy partners, championed quarry reform that was signed by Governor Patrick in 2010 and was implemented this year. So this is just the tip of the iceberg of the things we've done. I feel very comfortable saying that because of the work of the Massachusetts Law Reform Institute, hundreds of thousands of people over the last 45 years of our existence have benefited from our work and our initiatives that aren't even aware that we were involved in them. We work quietly, we work behind the scenes, but we do have a great deal of credibility with policymakers, and we have been very, very effective. And I only wish I could go through everything we've done, because it's been tremendous. I mean, our work in preserving a lot of public benefit programs that have been under attack. We have put forward a lot of innovative initiatives. I'll tell you very briefly about some work that we've done in Southbridge, Massachusetts, that is intended to close the racial education achievement gap. We realized that in Southbridge, Massachusetts, which has a very high Latino student population, that there were a lot of poor education outcomes in that community. So our attorney who focuses on racial justice work went into the community and worked hand in hand with the school district, with parents, with educators, and with a local institution of higher learning to create initiatives and programs that have significantly increased the number of students that are attending college or planning to attend college, have significantly increased test scores, and have really set these students on a pathway to success. Because as we know, education is the key to success and a key out of poverty. And this is a successful program that we hope to replicate in other school districts.
Well, Georgia, it's been really a pleasure to learn about all the achievements and the great work and how impactful it's been to Massachusetts. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, and we need to wrap up. But I want to thank all of you, our viewers, for paying attention and learning about what the Massachusetts Law Reform Institute does in Massachusetts for all of us. And if you need to see this again, and if you'd like to see it again, you can view it at www.discoveringthelaw.com. Our guest today has been Georgia
Katsoulomitis.
Georgia Katsoulomitis.
And I thank you so much for inviting me to discover Mass Law Reform. And to learn more about us, you can visit our website at www.mlri.org. And Lucy, I thank you so much for everything you do for the community.
Oh, like you do to the community. So thank you to all. Oh, my name is Lucy Rivera, and I am the host of this program.